Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. Distinguished, respected speakers here, distinguished guests, members of the Diplomatic Corps. First and foremost, I wish to thank Mr. Ejaz Nisar for giving me this opportunity to share my mundane views with an august audience like yourself. Thank you very much for that. A few things. We have talked about trust, and you will have to believe me when I say this to you, that one does walk to a rostrum a little prepared in mind of what one wishes to say, but then there is continuous alternation that is taking place. You got to change your gears after listening to speakers like Mr. Javed Jabbar. It's always a pleasure to listen to him. And he has been an inspiration to most of us. And thank you very much for being always there for us. I've sought advice from him on various subjects in life, and it's always very directional. Sir, not to refute what you said, but yawning is a great blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a signal by the body that the oxygen content is on a decline. Do something, react. And that's when you yawn to take in the extra oxygen that you need in your body. And all of us now understand how important it is to have oxygen in the body following COVID. Anything below 94% is dangerous, right? We all know that. So I see that as a great blessing. So you can all yawn while I'm speaking. I'll have no issue. Mr. Ejaz Nisar is a person who is extremely thoughtful. So I don't know whether it's out of mischief or out of good intent. To everybody, he gave a single subject. But to me, he gave a subject which is mentioned on the agenda, leadership in testing times. Now, that's not a very easy subject, because when I tried to ponder over the subject itself, I wanted to know for myself, when did the testing time start? And when is it likely to end? Now, for the last 77 years, okay, before I go further, please do keep a distinction in your mind that criticism is not a synonym for pessimism. Having established that, we have been a nation that has been sailing in a boat, luckily called the Hope. And it's the hope that is keeping everything alive, because hope is one factor in life that allows you the endeavor that one wishes to do to go forward, to keep on moving. Whether it is properly navigated and directed is something that has been a major issue with the country. Consequently, if I were to look at the first interview our founder gave to the Life magazine, which is a very popular magazine, and this interview he gave in July 1948. And he cited certain challenges for the new nascent country called Pakistan. When I read those challenges, I thought to myself, they are as valid today as they were in 1948 July. Regrettably, but yes, truly. You can go back to that interview, it's available. And if you don't, I have a copy of it. I can share it with you. So, the continuous process of leadership, which is either de jure or de facto, seeking legitimacy for itself, ceases to be leadership of any purpose. We have before us the challenges of the future. And we have to look at it in terms of where we are, where we ought to be, and where we should head. Now, we are talking of economic models that have become a little outdated in nature. The Chinese have tested the special economic zone theory about 35, 40 years back, and they did so beautifully that it has made China what it is today. And consequently, when they vacated that space for others to follow, Vietnam stepped in very quickly with an export of roughly about 30 to 40 billion dollars back in the 90s, they are today in excess of 600 billion exports. Now, this export-led growth of the economy is something that many nations of Southeast Asia and Northeast Asia followed, and with great amount of success. And where do we stand? We stand struggling at a figure anywhere between 28 and 30 billion, if you trust those figures. That is where we are. And we want to replicate the same model again. We have had 9 designated places in the country about 10 years back called the special economic zones. And regrettably, nothing has moved. No investment has come into it. No industry has been set up. If there are, far and few. So if that's not giving spur to our economic growth, what do we need to do? Something different. We must realize that we are living in times where there is geo-economic uncertainty, where there is geo-economic fragmentation taking place, where the value chain is getting to be extremely disrupted as we go down the road. You're already seeing a very cold war taking place, cold economic war taking place between the United States and China. Both cannot live without each other. That's the market and that's the factory. The user and the producer will have to remain aligned. They might use different methodologies to remain aligned, but that could disrupt countries which are on the growth level right now, like Pakistan, for example. We have had, regrettably again, in the democratic dispensation, the growth rates have been the lowest. But when we have had a dictatorial rule in the country, we have had growth rates of 7 and 8% to the GDP. What does it explain to us? Is it direction? Or is it accountability? Or is it fear? What motivates us as a nation? There was a mention made, okay, I'm going to digress a little bit because I need to create that importance of the word ego was mentioned. So therefore I'm referring to this. You talked about the national anthem. धुन बड़ी खूबसूरत है, धुन याद रह गई है, अल्फाज भूल गए हैं. We have not focusing on the content of the anthem, but the music is excellent. So we know the rhythm, the beat, the meter is perfect. Now somebody wrote that. And I'm talking about many, many moons back. I get off a car with my brother-in-law. He parks his car at a place in Karachi called Masjid-e-Qizra. And I'm literally clutching his finger and walking towards his office on Abdullah Harun Road. And a gentleman is coming from across. I see him and I consider to myself that maybe he's going to ask for some alms. He's wearing a sherwani and he's not buttoned up at all. And as he gets closer, my brother-in-law goes into a profuse salams to him. And the two stand and talk to each other, and I'm examining this individual. Some of the buttons on his sherwani were not there, and the attire was not the cleanest. And the conversation that was taking place gave me an idea that he's somebody important. So once they said goodbye to each other and we continued our walk, he said, "Did you recognize him?" So I told my brother-in-law, "No, I didn't." He said, "He's the one who wrote your national anthem, Hafiz Jalandhari." Humility, ego. Very mindful. We stand in a state of confusion continually because it's good to have ego, but ego becomes ego only when you recognize that ego. Refer it to as self-esteem and the whole dimension of thinking changes. And that's what leaders are meant for. They need to subdue themselves, especially those who are public office holders. They are subservient to the will of the people of the country. They must remember that. And therefore, if we are living in that world that I talked about, the economic uncertainty and the geofragmentation that has taken place, what is the world looking at? What is our plan? 2030, I think Sabi Saab made a reference to that 60 billion mark on exports. What is the world looking at? The world is looking at a major change in conducting business, a complete transformation from the present era of conducting business. Ladies and gentlemen, in a recent study of the World Economic Forum, where something like 55 economies were touched, where 14 million workers were interviewed, and the output of that analysis was that between now and 2030, there will be creation of 170 million new jobs, of which, this is where the catch is, of which 92 million will be skills that will have to be reshaped. Otherwise, they would become redundant. Consequently, what is the real growth in terms of net opportunity for employment? Only 78 million. Now, what is this retooling? The retooling is all about the instability of skills which are lacking today. Now, if I were to pose this question to this august audience here, most of you are CEOs, and I speak for myself first and foremost. I find myself totally incapable of conducting an interview for a person that I wish to hire to do AI for my business. I don't even know what question to ask him. I'm not trained for it. I haven't studied enough about it. So consequently, what would happen? If I'm not going to transform myself with speed and lightning speed, then the other economies are going to dominate us. What's happening globally is that you have an aging population in the higher income economies. So the opportunity for employment there is going to grow in areas like healthcare, hospital management. These are the areas which will find growth. And those economies which are low-income economies, they are going to produce a lot of human capital, whether completely ready or half ready, to take on challenges. But they would not have the relevant jobs for reasons that they are not being retained or retooled or reskilled. So the important thing for us to understand is that it's going to be a very different world in the next 4 to 5 years, where everything is going to be digitized. There will be complete involvement of data analytics, big data experts. We are already facing something that we should have recognized long time back. The carbon emissions. We did not. Although our contribution is possibly less than 2% to the climate change in terms of carbon emissions, but the fact is that we still are faced with that situation. We are witnessing it, and those of us who have experienced it in the north part of Pakistan know exactly what it means, how damaging it is to health if you were not to control your climate. So are we prepared for it? Are we thinking as leaders? This is the test of a leader, to be able to think forward 20 years from now, 30 years from now. You think China is today because they decided to be the world economic power 10 years back? No, they decided in the 50s to be a world economic power by a certain date, which they did. And with the opening that took place in 1978, they have been on a roller coaster, literally. So where do we stand? Are we prepared to do this transformation? Are we prepared for the green revolution that we need to have in order to have some control over climatic conditions? Do we have enough farmers who are trained in the newest technology? Because this is where the growing demand will be. The demand will be for transport technology experts, movement of goods. Do we provide any training in that area? Will your businesses, those who are in business, will you not undergo this transformation? You will have to. You will be forced by the market. I had a good fortune of working in a place called Hong Kong. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen, one would get thrown out of the market if we did not have something new to offer every single day into that marketplace. That's how competitive that market is. And that's how the state of affairs will be down the road. That is where we are. You're already standing next to me and you said I could have the whole day.
Oh, You took me seriously. Oh,
I took it serious. I always take people seriously. So you'll have to give me 2 minutes to wind it up.
I'll be here for 2.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is a direct linkage to academia. What are we teaching our children today? Are we preparing them for 2047 or not? Or will that 20-year-old in 2047 will be as clumsy as I am? Or will he be a better person? Or will she be a better person? You'll again be surprised. A recent statistics of ranking of universities globally, of the top 50 universities of the world, you know where 26 are located? In China. And in a province called Sichuan, Chengdu being the capital, the Chengdu University now ranks better than Oxford, Cornell, and also Wharton and Stanford. That's the ranking. They have moved forward. They are training their people. So our academia is training for what? Educating for what? Is something that we ought to know. I would like to conclude by saying that leaders never think of themselves. They think for others and therefore they think ahead. Lee Kuan Yew is somebody I admire and I completely keep on reading any book that's available on him, any material. So when he decided to sidestep from Prime Minister's role, he took a position as senior minister in the cabinet because he made a remark and he said, because at that time the Singapore Airlines were protesting, so he said, I'll not let these 42 individuals destroy my airline or what I have built. I'll build a new airline, but I'll sack them tonight. Decisive leadership. And once he was able to guide the cabinet for X number of years, he parted from the cabinet also. And you know what remark he made? He said, thank God, Singapore does not need Lee Kuan Yew. Be leadership multipliers, not the leader themselves. Thank you very much.